In 2016, two young Nigerian engineers set out to solve a problem many had given up on, making online payments in Africa simple, fast, and reliable. What started as a side project would soon become a billion-dollar company, revolutionize digital commerce across the continent, and catch the attention of Silicon Valley giants. This is the story of Paystack, the startup that didn't just crack the code of African payments, but opened the floodgates for a generation of tech innovation. The story begins with two Nigerian tech enthusiasts, Shola Akinlade and Ezra Olubi. They first met in 2002 as first-year computer science students at Babcock University during a software exhibition. They bonded over their love for computers and all things technology, and eventually became close friends.
My name is Shola Akinlade, co-founder and CEO of Paystack. I grew up in Lagos, started writing software 2002, 2003. That's when I met Ezra. We went to school.
After graduation, the pair then worked together as freelancers, before splitting up to do separate things. Ezra went on to join Softcom, a company they had previously freelanced for together as a full-time employee, while Shola went on to do other things. While at Softcom, Ezra worked on a product that allowed Nigerians to buy credit online. This worked by allowing users to load money onto a wallet and then having them call or send an SMS to a number to buy the airtime. On the back end, they would then go on to debit the wallet and send the airtime to the user's number. But then they noticed that people were also beginning to use the wallet as a store of value and decided to open it up to become more than just airtime sales. They then recreated the product and made it into an online payment wallet that could be used for all sorts of things. They called the product Eyowu. While this product could help facilitate transactions, it still needed third-party interfaces like InterSwitch to process the transactions. Ezra wanted more. He wanted to take this product to the next step, allowing it to process transactions by itself. Unfortunately, Softcom, being a large company with multiple products, wasn't able to commit resources to his vision. This eventually led to him leaving and going out on his own. This is where Shola and Ezra meet again. In 2015, Shola had also consulted at a bank during the same time and had also seen the problems with online payments in Nigeria. He was frustrated by how hard it was for Nigerian businesses to collect payments online. He reached out to the one person he trusted to build something truly seamless, Ezra. Every great startup story has that gritty phase, long nights, stubborn bugs, the feeling that you're building something that just might work. Shola had just left his job working on enterprise software in the banking sector. He understood Nigeria's payment pain points from the inside. Ezra, his longtime friend and brilliant programmer, had the technical chops to bring a vision to life. They weren't trying to build something fancy. They were trying to solve a very real problem. How do you make it easy for Nigerian businesses to collect money online without losing their minds? So they started simple, a clean API, a no-nonsense dashboard, and a checkout experience that just worked. No more confusing bank integrations, no more endless forms, just enter your card and go. But there was a bigger obstacle, trust. In a country where failed online payments were more common than successful ones, convincing businesses to try a new startup was no small feat. So they did what every great startup does. They spoke to their customers, they met with small businesses, explained the platform, listened to feedback, and improved the product, one feature at a time, and slowly it began to click. Businesses started signing up, payments started flowing, customers began to ask, wait, who built this? By the end of 2016, Paystack had processed hundreds of millions of naira in payments. They weren't just building a product, they were building infrastructure. But this wasn't just about code, it was about culture. From the start, Paystack's team was different, young, diverse, proudly Nigerian, and deeply obsessed with customer experience. They didn't just want to be a payment processor, they wanted to empower African businesses to grow, to scale, to dream bigger. The foundation was set, the product worked, and word was starting to spread far beyond Nigeria. Paystack had built more than just a tech tool. They had built momentum. By late 2016, Paystack was gaining serious traction in Nigeria. Their products worked, businesses were talking, and transactions were growing steadily. But for Shola and Ezra, it wasn't just about local wins. They were building with global ambition. To truly scale, they needed capital, mentorship, and connections that extended far beyond Nigeria. So they set their sights on one of the most prestigious startup accelerators in the world, Y Combinator. Getting into YC is no joke. Thousands apply, only a few make it in. Especially rare, startups from Africa. At the time, only a handful had ever been accepted, but Shola and Ezra were ready. With their numbers, their product, and their clarity of purpose, they pitched Paystack not just as a Nigerian payment company but as Africa's future Stripe. Then it happened. Paystack got in. They became one of the first Nigerian startups to ever be accepted into Y Combinator. That moment changed everything. At YC's Winter 2016 batch, Paystack wasn't just another startup. They were representing a continent. They proved to the world that African founders could build global grade startups. With guidance from YC partners, exposure to a world-class network, and mentorship from some of the brightest minds in tech, Paystack sharpened their focus, refined their pitch, and prepared to scale harder and faster than ever before. On demo day, Paystack stood tall, proud, and confident. They weren't asking for validation, they were showing what was already working, and investors listened. That same year, they raised $1.3 million from YC, Comcast Ventures, Tencent, and others. It was a game changing round. But more than the money, it was the signal. Paystack is the real deal. With YC behind them, Paystack returned to Nigeria, not as underdogs but as trailblazers, ready to scale, ready to dominate, and ready to shape the future of African fintech. Coming out of Y Combinator, Paystack had momentum. They had the funding, the global backing, and a solid product. But back in Africa, scaling wasn't going to be as simple as flipping a switch. In a market like Nigeria, deeply cash driven, highly fragmented, and often skeptical of online platforms, growth came with serious challenges. First, there was regulation. Paystack had to navigate complex financial rules, licensing requirements, and ever changing compliance expectations from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Then there was trust. Many businesses still didn't believe online payments could work consistently or safely. Fraud was common. Failed transactions were normal. Paystack had to change hearts and minds. And while they were building trust from the ground up, Paystack wasn't alone. Traditional banks were still the go-to for payments, and rising fintechs like Flutterwave were also gaining steam, fighting for market share and attention. But Paystack had a different playbook. Instead of chasing headlines, Paystack obsessed over developer experience. They made it easy for businesses, big or small, like to plug payments into their apps with clean, well-documented APIs. They doubled down on customer support with live chat, fast response times, and a human approach that Nigerian businesses weren't used to. And most importantly, they made it work. The API was fast, reliable, and rarely failed. And in African fintech, reliability is everything. The results spoke for themselves. Within a few years, Paystack was processing millions of transactions monthly. Their reputation soared, and soon they weren't just servicing Nigeria. In 2018, they expanded into Ghana. In 2021, they launched in South Africa. Each move carefully timed, ensuring compliance, customer onboarding, and infrastructure readiness. Paystack didn't just scale fast, they scaled deliberately, focused, sustainable, and always with the merchant in mind. Their journey was far from smooth, but through regulation, doubt, and intense competition, Paystack stayed true to its mission, empowering African businesses to grow with powerful, accessible payments technology. By 2020, Paystack was a force in African fintech. Their clean APIs, obsessive customer support, and rock-solid reliability had made them the payment infrastructure of choice for thousands of businesses. But just when the tech world was watching them grow, something even bigger happened. October 2020, the unthinkable became reality. Stripe, one of the most valuable fintech companies in the world, announced it was acquiring Paystack for $200 million. It was the biggest startup acquisition in Nigerian history and a defining moment for the African tech ecosystem. For Stripe, the decision was strategic. They had long admired Paystack's technology, growth, and focus. But most importantly, they saw what Shola and Ezra saw, a digital revolution brewing across Africa. Africa has the youngest population in the world, rising internet penetration, and a wave of entrepreneurs ready to scale. Stripe didn't just want a slice of that future, they wanted to build it. Paystack wasn't just a strong team, they were already doing what Stripe hoped to do globally, building financial infrastructure for the internet. But the acquisition meant more than just a big check. It was validation, proof that African startups could build world-class companies and attract global giants not out of charity but out of serious business interest. It sparked a new wave of investor interest in Africa. Suddenly, global VCs, angels, and accelerators were paying attention. If Stripe was betting on Africa, others didn't want to be left behind. But in the midst of global headlines, Paystack made a powerful decision. They would stay independent. Stripe wouldn't absorb them into their system. Instead, Paystack would continue to be built in Africa, by Africans, for African businesses. That choice mattered. It signaled that Africa didn't need saving, it needed partnership, investment, and respect. Backed by Stripe's resources, Paystack was able to scale faster, expand wider, and dream even bigger. But their heart and their headquarters remained in Lagos. The Stripe acquisition wasn't the end of Paystack's story, it was the beginning of a new chapter, one where African startups could build boldly, compete globally, and rewrite the rules of what's possible. Some startups exit with a press release, others leave behind a legacy. Paystack's story isn't just about building a great product or securing a billion naira acquisition, it's about how two founders lit a fire across a continent. In the years since its founding, Paystack has become a symbol, a turning point that proved African startups could be global, scalable, and truly impactful. Today, many of Africa's most promising startups, from Eden Life to PiggyVest, have grown with Paystack powering their payments. The infrastructure that Shola and Ezra built is now the quiet engine behind thousands of businesses. But more than infrastructure, Paystack gave African entrepreneurs something even more powerful: permission to dream bigger. Shola Akinlade, ever the builder, didn't stop with Paystack. In 2022, he made headlines again, this time not in tech but in football. He founded Sporting Lagos FC, a football club built on the same values as Paystack: community, excellence, and belief in homegrown talent. Through sport, Shola continues his mission, nurturing potential and building institutions that move Nigeria forward. And then there's Ezra Olubi, co-founder, CTO, and a symbol in his own right. Known for his intellect and his refusal to conform, Ezra became a beacon for a new kind of African founder, unapologetically different, fiercely brilliant, and always authentic. Beyond his code, Ezra's legacy is in his presence, a walking statement that African tech has room for the outliers, the artists, and the rebels. Together, Shola and Ezra didn't just build a company, they built confidence in a new African narrative, one where the continent isn't waiting to catch up, but leading the charge. From payment rails to inspiration, Paystack's fingerprints are everywhere, in the code, the culture, and the countless startups now daring to build Africa's future. Legacy isn't about what you take with you, it's about what you leave behind. And Paystack's legacy is just getting started. From a scrappy startup in Lagos to a continental infrastructure giant, Paystack has reshaped how Africa moves money. But even after all the milestones, Y Combinator, millions of merchants, and the $200 million Stripe acquisition, they're still just getting started. As Africa's digital economy booms, so do the challenges: cross-border transactions, fragmented financial systems, underserved markets. Paystack's vision: to become the backbone of online commerce in Africa. The next step: expansion. From East Africa to Francophone regions, Paystack is working on building the rails that will unify Africa's digital payments, making it as easy for a merchant in Nairobi to sell online as one in Lagos. They're investing in deeper API capabilities, more localized tools, and enterprise-scale support to empower both startups and the continent's biggest companies. But Paystack isn't just about transactions, they're about transformation with developer grants, startup toolkits, and educational events like Paystack Build. They're laying the foundation for the next wave of African creators and builders. Their mission is clear: build for the builders, give them the tools, get out of the way, let Africa rise. In a continent where opportunity and innovation move fast, the future belongs to those who can build trust, scale ideas, and think long term. And for Paystack, that future is Africa. Paystack is more than a company, it's a spark, a signal that world-class startups can be born in Africa, grow in Africa, and thrive on a global stage. From that first line of code to processing billions in payments, from Lagos to the world, the story of Paystack is a story of belief, boldness, and building for something bigger than yourself. This was the story of Paystack, but in many ways, it's also the story of African tech itself, daring to dream, determined to build, and ready for the next digital decade. If you like this video, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Tell us which African startup story we should cover next in the comments.